Sometimes flying high and then getting pushed means you fall even harder. And that's what we saw last night when we looked at Ja Morant as he was going for this incredible dunk over Lou Dort. Just watch this clip right here. He's writhing in pain a lot like Jimmy Butler. And the play, it's just obvious how he got injured. Right here, he gets the ball. Lou Dort's slipping and then takes him out. And he lands right on the front of his hip. And that's just a terrible injury to suffer. It's tough to go from that such a high height, then to come down and just land right on his hip. Now, what exactly happened? What part of his body was injured and what was going on here? So this is the ilium. We talked a lot about it yesterday with our Jimmy Butler video that we'll link below about his injury, but likely the same type of injury in terms of a bone or muscular strain is likely what happened here. Ja Morant fell right here. I can draw a little bit more of where he fell right here in this area. And this area is called the ASIS, or anterior superior iliac spine. And then we have the AS. And then we have the anterior inferior iliac spine right here. Now that's important because this is what you'd call a bony prominence. If you just look on yourself and try and palpate or touch a little bit of your hip bone, you're probably going to feel the ASIS pretty easily. And when Ja Morant fell, he fell basically like this model right here. He fell just with his feet extended fully and right on that area. And Ja Morant's a thin dude. He has basically probably no fat around this area. It's mostly going to be muscle. So it's going to really hurt. And because he fell on it flush and that there was really nothing bracing his fall whatsoever, he probably had a bad contusion there. And that's what I think happened. But also a lot of muscles attached to this. A lot of muscles that extend down into the legs, a lot of muscles that operate just within the hip directly. So those muscles could also be strained. And I think that's why, as you saw him walking towards the free throw line, it looked obvious that he's not coming back this game and that the contusion is likely very severe. Now, how severe? Let's go back to our handy dandy table about some of the ways we can look at tibial contusions and use them over imaging to examine ones in the hip bones as well. I think a grade 1 or grade 2, like we saw in Jimmy Butler, is less likely here just because of how flush he hit it. And you saw him trying to walk a little bit after and even shooting the free throws. It just wasn't a natural motion for him anymore. So the edema, that's definitely present. Some bone marrow edema, definitely present. He probably really injured it. I could even see some of the fragments of the ASIS breaking off. So that likely leads us to a grade 3 or even grade 4 strain or fracture. I think a fracture is probably honestly likely with how fast they ruled him out of the rest of the game and with the way he looked at his teammates. It looked like he could barely take those free throws, and I could definitely see a hairline fracture there. And that would be a huge problem for the Memphis Grizzlies, not because they were going to win this series or anything like that, but mainly because it's going to impact his offseason availability and I think also impact his value to the league. He continues to get injured, and as I said, flying high means you fall even harder, and this falling even harder is not a good place for Ja Morant to be. I think it's likely that he gets an x-ray and then an MRI as well, just like Jimmy Butler. I don't think they'll be on as fast of a timeline though, because I think physical exam, if you look at the doctors and therapists that were right on the scene, were asking him to feel around his hip to see if there's any pain. I think there is a possibility that these types of injuries require surgery. Sometimes they don't. A lot of times around the hip joint, it's pretty easy to not need surgery. But we'll see what the doctors recommend here. And obviously, I don't know his medical history specifically. But if I did, I would probably say that Ja Morant definitely has to watch out for these high-flying falls. And earlier this year, he took that into account a lot, saying that, hey, I'm not going to dunk anymore. I'm not going to try to be the superstar. But obviously in the playoffs, you're not really thinking about falling. And you end up falling on your anterior superior iliac spine, and that's going to hurt. In fact, it might even fracture. So it's really unfortunate to see these types of injuries happening in the NBA, even today. And I don't think Lou Dort's a dirty player or anything, but I'm obviously not a Grizzlies fan, so I'm curious to see what Grizzlies fans think. But I'm just sad to see star players get injured. We want the best players playing in the playoffs. If you guys like this type of content, I know it's a little bit different than our normal film reviews. Please feel free to like and subscribe. We're going to try to do this more often as we have some expertise in this area, and we'd like to share it with you all. Thank you guys for watching.